with that, we are going to turn it over to Eric. Eric, go ahead.
So I'd like 45 minutes, was that right? 50.
Give or take.
50, okay.
Give or take.
12? 12? Okay. Hi, everybody. My name's Eric Potyondy. I don't speak into a microphone very often, so I apologize. But I'm the City of Fort Collins in-house water attorney. Most cities and districts throughout the state use outside counsel from law firms. Some of the larger ones like Fort Collins have someone in-house. So that's what I do. I work in the city attorney's office, and I focus pretty exclusively on water issues for the city. Let me see, is this the pointer? Yeah, these are, in case you're wondering, these are two local known troublemakers in the Poudre Basin that I'm pretty familiar with, but they'll lead us on. The city of Fort Collins does a lot of water-related projects. We're a pretty large municipality. We have several departments that are all pretty active in water-related matters. We have a water utility that provides treated water to our customers and other things. We have a wastewater utility, kind of the back end of the municipal water cycle that most of us would just assume not think about too much, quite frankly. We have the stormwater utility. They really help manage floodwaters, making sure rain and snow melt get back to the stream without injuring property or damaging people. And we have a natural areas department, kind of our open space department, and they're always coming up with pretty creative ideas and questions for programs we could do. In general, the city of Fort Collins, we really try to build in environmental ethics and concerns throughout all of our projects. I think it's called the triple bottom line. I forget what the other two are, but you know, I'm just the law guy, so staff members focus on that. But we really try to build in environmental concerns and considerations throughout all our projects. So we're just going to highlight a couple, I think 3 of kind of the bigger ones here. The first one is gravel pit augmentation. So this one gets a little bit technical, but I'll try to keep it at a level that even a lawyer can understand. So this is kind of a map of the, oh, that was the wrong button. This is a map. That's not a map. That's a map. This is a map of the Poudre River through Fort Collins. It kind of starts up in the upper corner, and all the green parcels are natural areas that the city owns. Over time, the city of Fort Collins has acquired a pretty high percentage of the 100-year floodplain through Fort Collins, and a lot of these have been turned into natural areas. The Poudre Trail kind of traverses through a lot of them. And a lot of these parcels historically were mined. This is the kind of sort of open pit gravel mining where it's not really like deep tunnels underground. These are just sort of big holes in the ground to dig out gravel and rocks, which are typically used for construction and other things. And basically what that does is it sort of digs a hole into the water table. And that creates some water-related challenges, as we'll see. So this is a simplified diagram of the river. So look at the top one here. This kind of bold line, that's a representation of the kind of the ground surface level. And then here, this is sort of the water table below the ground, and then the exposed water kind of in the river channel. And in a very simplified way, groundwater supports the flow of the river channel, kind of like you saw with Jennifer Gimbel's more detailed diagram. What you have with these gravel pits, though, is you sort of end up digging another hole nearby the river, and that really disrupts the groundwater flow. By exposing additional groundwater to the air, you get evaporation. You'll also have some plants on the edge consuming some of that water, and it essentially reduces the flow to the river. Now, from an environmental standpoint, this has some pros and cons because this additional pond over here creates a lot of additional habitat for animals and migrating waterfowl. But from a water rights standpoint, it creates a problem because you can't really shut off an open pit mine that's exposing groundwater. These ponds also typically have really junior rights, if any rights at all, compared to senior downstream ditches. So effectively, these gravel pit ponds are kind of stealing water from downstream ditches and users. Then the lawyers get involved. So typically, until the 1980s, these gravel pits just existed and everyone kind of carried on. But then there was a famous water court case here in the Poudre Basin in the early 1980s, and the Colorado Supreme Court said, basically, no, this evaporation, this is a use of water, and you have to get into the prior appropriation system and participate. So now you either have to do one of these different things here to come into compliance. You either have to get a court-approved plan called an augmentation plan, basically to offset those depletions with other sources of water. A different type of plan approved administratively, which is really similar. The legislature, in their infinite wisdom, also said, hey, you know, if it was before the 1980s and you had your gravel pit, we'll just give you a pass. That's what we often do in our legal system. Or also you can fill them in and not have to deal with any of this water rights stuff. So generally in Fort Collins, with all of our gravel pit properties that we own, we have several augmentation plans and we have really kind of a fairly complex scheme to keep that all moving. The second big plan I was going to mention is about the Poudre Flows plan. This is something we've been working on with a whole bunch of other users on the stream, including some of our historical frenemies, Greeley and Thornton, as well as the Water Trust, Northern Waters there. And it's really a beautifully simple idea. The idea is we're going to try to take water that was historically used for crops that's gone through water court. We're going to add it to the river. While it's floating down the river, we're going to have a legal protection so other people can't use it or divert it out of the river. And then at the end of the reach, well, we can either leave it in the stream or re-divert it out. The concept is that this is all going to sort of operate on top of existing operations, so it shouldn't affect anyone. We went to the legislature in 2020. Sorry, the pandemic's kind of muddled the timeline there. We went to the legislature in 2020, got legislation to clarify that we can do this and how it would work, and now we're working through the process on the Poudre River, though it could potentially be applied statewide. Of course, when you take a beautifully simple idea like this and apply it to the real world, it gets more complex. So with our engineering firm and Josh's help, we have identified stretches of the Poudre River where there's different flow requirements. You have all these intervening diversions, a lot of details to work through, but that's still the concept. The amount of flows we're targeting per reach varies. Fort Collins, Greeley, and Thornton have all volunteered to have water added to the plan. We hope to add additional water later, but that's kind of in process at the moment. We are in water court. We filed our application in 2021. We have about 25 opposing parties that we're working through our issues with, and we have a trial set for October 2025. And typically water court cases do settle before you get to trial, and I think we're hopeful that working through that. We're also talking with ditch companies to try to work through those issues there. And then the last one is our Halligan water supply project. Basically, we're trying to enlarge an existing reservoir, Halligan Reservoir, to meet our future demands for the Fort Collins utilities supply area that was on the map with all those water providers. It's basically the majority of central part of Fort Collins. This is the existing Halligan Dam. It's not in the middle of nowhere, but you can see the middle from the dam. It's actually one of the original concrete arch dams. You think of Hoover Dam as that concrete arch. This is one of the original ones. It predates Hoover Dam. It kind of has an interesting history. Initially, they wanted to make the dam larger and more of a classic structure. They started building it, and then they realized they were never going to have enough concrete or enough money to complete it. So they did this really innovative design at the time. It's basically an arched wall, and it holds back the water. What Fort Collins would like to do is to expand this reservoir by rebuilding the dam to increase its capacity. Currently, it's about 6,400 acre feet, and we want to enlarge it by another 8,000. So it's about twice the size or so. That's the level of lawyer math that you're going to get from this presentation. Oh, one other thing I'd mention, you can kind of see on this photo here, these are in fact water seeping through the dam. It does pass safety inspections, but it does note that this is a dam that's going to need to be replaced one way or another. And we in Fort Collins think we might as well replace it and improve the community. Some key attributes to the project. This is sort of a larger map here. You can see Halligan way up here. It's about 25 miles northwest of Fort Collins. We'll enlarge that. To get the water to our system, it will need to float down 22 miles of the North Fork. Comes here, this is kind of the Gateway Park area, partway up the Poudre Canyon, where we will divert the water into our system. We have a pipeline that takes it to our treatment plant here, and then it's distributed. Some key aspects of the project are that the water rights we're going to use are water that was historically used to irrigate Fort Collins. We've gone through water court to change it, to store it and use it there. It'll re-water stretches of the North Fork that have historically been bone dry because of irrigation company operations. It'll increase habitat, and we have about, I forget the number, 16 some odd $1 million of other mitigation as well. I'll gonna skip this slide. I'm getting the sense I need to. No? Oh, 45 seconds. When I mentioned that parts of the North Fork are dry, these are the most dramatic. This is below a current diversion structure on the North Fork, and this is the North Fork below that. It's been that way since the late 1800s because of irrigation company operations, and this is another stretch that is historically dry. This is the amount of flow we're going to consistently release out of Halligan Reservoir, the enlarged reservoir, to maintain those flows. It takes a long time to get the permits, particularly the federal permits, to do that. We started the process 2004, 2006, depending on how you start counting. Our final environmental impact statement is actually going to be released on Friday. That doesn't mean the process is done. That just means the environmental impact statement is done. And we still have a few more processes, one with the Larimer County, not that I'm lobbying or anything, just an FYI, and a few other things, and then we hope to get the project under construction by 2027.
All right, do we have any clarifying questions for Eric? Oh, there's one in the back. Hold on just a second.
Is there a minimum size on the gravel pit augmentation requirement?
No. When it comes to the concept with an augmentation plan is you're sort of diverting water out of priority when you don't have a right to, and so you get your augmentation plan to offset those diversions. Depending on the river basin and how tight the water supplies are, I've seen augmentation plans done for less than an acre foot. Denver Water has a new big building they built, and they wanted to capture runoff from their roof to use it on site. And I think their augmentation, they had to do an augmentation plan for that for like half an acre foot a year. It's kind of amazing. Not necessarily amazing in a good way or a inspiring way, but amazing nonetheless.